All right. I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining. My name is Mike Walton, and in this webinar, I want to go over CertMS and what it is and what it can do in kind of a real-world environment. First, couple quick housekeeping things. I am going to do my best to keep this webinar just at an hour. I want to be respectful of everyone's time and everything that we can put into this webinar in that 1 hour. Secondly, the webinar is being recorded, so I will have this posted up later so that you can view it. If you have to step away for anything, feel free. It will be available to you after the webinar is completed. And lastly, I am doing this webinar by myself, so the Q&A section is open. Feel free to post any questions you have in there, but I may not get to them right away. I'll get to them as quickly as possible. I'm going to try to leave a little bit of time at the end for a good Q&A that I can go through the questions and hopefully answer them for you. If I don't get to your question, I will respond back to you directly with an answer to your question. And with that, let's get started. I want to start with a quick PowerPoint presentation, and I promise it will be quick. I want to double check a couple things. Perfect. All right. So CertMS. So the idea behind CertMS is to never miss another expiring certificate. So certificates are everywhere and everything uses them, from your HTTPS websites, now with SQL encryption, doing your wireless WPA2 enterprise security, BYOD devices, code signing, etc. Really anything you can think of now utilizes certificates. And certificates, they can be gotten through a private certificate authority or a public certificate authority or even self-signed. But they're a big pain to keep track of. In a typical IT environment, and many small to medium sized, even large companies now, we use a mixture of internal certificate authorities and public certificate authorities. So the internal certificate authority is what you stand up in your environment for a lot of your internal websites and that kind of things, things that you don't need to pay for a certificate for. While your public certificate authorities are going to be your GoDaddy or your other places you can purchase certificates from, and these were typically for your public-facing websites. But even with all that, when time comes to renew the certificate, it's very easy to renew, but we may not know what servers that those certificates live on. So it becomes a big pain to track if you're not keeping great documentation about what servers each of those certificates live on and what they're actually doing on those servers. Many companies use a mixture of scripts and policies to accomplish this, but scripts quickly become out of date, and policies don't always tell you what servers a certificate lives on. Current solutions out there are, in my opinion, a little lacking. So many of the affordable solutions out there only monitor public websites. So they're SaaS applications and they only monitor a public facing site. They act more as an uptime tracker than an actual certificate monitoring solution. So they'll tell you the uptime of your website and they'll tell you if your certificate's about to expire, but they don't tell you anything about internal certificates that are going to expire or even where those certificate lives. They can monitor a single server or a single website, and that's about it. The more expensive ones and the more kind of ones that are for your enterprise type customers are what they call certificate lifecycle management applications. And those really hijack your entire certificate authority. They kind of come in and they take over your certificate authority and they become the one that issues a certificate, revokes certificates, alerts on the certificate. It does kind of everything. So you really need the expertise not only to implement that into your environment, but you also need the expertise to maintain it and utilize it properly. And even with some of those, you still can't tell where certificates live on specific servers. This is where CertMS solves these issues. So CertMS will monitor certificate authorities. It'll monitor servers. It will monitor hosts, and by hosts, I mean your websites. And because this is an internal appliance, you can monitor both external and internal websites with it. It will alert on expiring certificates. We can associate documentation, so we're bringing an entire documentation piece into this, We can associate documentation with certificates. And the best part, in my opinion, is it does not hijack your certificate authority. This is a completely passive monitoring solution that lets you know when certificate's about to expire. So, yay, never miss an expiring certificate again with CertMS. So I'm gonna have a sip of coffee and then we're gonna hop right into the demo here. Let's see if I can bring up the demo environment. Excellent. Great. So the first thing, let's bring up some of my documentation here. The first thing I want to show you and let you know of is we are currently, what I'm showing you here is we're in a demo environment, and it's actually a full environment. We have a domain controller, we have a certificate authority, we have an IIS or a web server, and we have a Windows 10 workstation, which is what we're on right here. And that Windows 10 workstation is what we're going to use to access CertMS. We also have the CertMS appliance running as well. So this is the main login interface of CertMS. This is an on-prem environment. I have my DNS pointing to CertMS. So we're just going to go ahead and log in. Pretty simple here. Nothing special or crazy about this. And the first thing you will immediately see is we're at this dashboard. Now, this dashboard is a great place for you to see immediately things that are important. So the first thing, we'll start from left and work right. So the first thing we're going to see over here is we're going to see the services. Now, CertMS runs on four different services. The web service, which is what we're running on here, that's kind of the brains of it. And then we have a report service for all reporting, host scanner service, and a computer scanner service. You can immediately tell that all of these services are actually green, so all the services are running. And we have nice little buttons. So if we want to stop or restart a service, we can certainly do that. So just for giggles, we'll go ahead and we can stop the host scanner service and we give it a second or two. You see that it goes red, and then we can go back and start it again. In the next card over we have here are certificates that are expiring this month. And you can see right away we have one certificate that's expiring this month, and it's expiring in, what's that, 6 days. Then on the far right here, we have certificates pending. And this is if you have a certificate that is issuable or someone can request it, but it requires approval from an admin or a manager before the certificate's actually issued. Once you log into CertMS, you can immediately see if there's any certificates that are pending approval. Up here in the top right, we have just the typical kind of log out buttons, and then we have your profile where we can, basically the user can update their information and update their password if they're not a Radius user. Now, the heart of CertMS really is storing the certificates. So let's go look at the certificate section here. And what you'll immediately see is, again, this is a demo environment, so we don't have all that many, but we're showing 7 certificates here, showing 1 to 7 of 7 entries. Now, this page does pagination, so it will, expand out here to show more, but this is where we can see all of our certificates that CertMS knows about. If we want to look at any of them, we can just click on the little pencil button, and we can see all the details about the certificate itself. A couple things that we've actually added in here, and I'm going to go ahead and actually remove a couple of these because we don't need them at the moment. But one of the couple things that you notice that we've added in here is some custom data. Now, this is data that's not part of the certificate itself, but it's stuff that we may want to alert on, or we may want to do something with later. So you can add as much custom data as you'd like to any certificate that you have here. And we'll go ahead and remove this documentation because we're going to do this a little bit later in the demo. But we can simply click custom data, and then we can add a key value pair to add it. And we can make manual associations to servers if we like to. So we can click server here. We could choose a server to add if we want to. But all the data is in here. All our subject data, if we have any for this certificate, we don't. But all the data that we need is actually in this view. I'll go ahead and submit that just to save it. You can see shows that it was successfully updated. Now this view in CertMS currently shows you everything that is not expired, so anything that's currently active, and anything that's not revoked or hidden. If you want to see everything, then we would click this Show All Certs button. And this basically removes the filters itself and shows us everything. So now you can see we're showing 1 of 8 entries, and what was hidden was this V1 certificate here. And the reason it was hidden was because it expired in May of 21, or yeah, May 21st of 2023. So that's why it's hidden. And then we can always come back and do show filtered certs, and it will clear that out and only show us the certs that we need. The next really neat piece of part here is the search field. So the search field is great because it can search on any field that you see currently, and it will actually search on many fields you don't see. So if we wanted to search on, I could search on just CertMS, or cert management in this case, but it would find everything. So let's search on V2. And you can see some fields must have a V2 somewhere in them because all of these are showing up. But the other ones you see filtered out. This will even search on, which you're not seeing here, subject alternative names. So if your certificate has, I don't know if V2 has any or not, doesn't, but if your certificate has a subject alternative name, this search will bring that into view. So the good thing about CertMS is all the different ways that it can pull certificates into itself. You don't have to add them manually, but there may be reasons you need to. So to do that, you can simply click the Add Certificate and go through all the different fields here. The ones with the asterisks are denoted as the required fields. And you can save your own certificate. And that way you can alert on it. You can do other things just like you would any other certificate that's being pulled into CertMS through other means. Now I'm going to jump around a little bit just because I want to do this in kind of a logical order. So the next thing I want to show you is the monitor section. Now this is kind of, again, where CertMS shines, is the different monitors. So the first thing we're going to look at here is the CA monitors, and that's the certificate authority monitors. It's very easy to set up a certificate authority monitor in CertMS. The first thing we want to do is we're going to do Add Certificate Authority Monitor. And you can see I've already saved some information in here, so it's going to go ahead and populate some of this data for me. It's going to populate some of this data for me. So you can see I have to put the FQD in of the CA in here, which in my case is ca.certms.local. And then the certificate template that we want to actually monitor. And then you would put in the email address of anybody who would either receive a pending alert or an issued alert. When we first set these up, we don't want to put these in just yet because you're going to get bombarded with all the emails as it does the initial seeding. So we're going to fill this out and we're going to click submit. And now you can see we have our CA monitor set up in here waiting to go. So there's one more piece we have to do, and that is the monitor script. Now we want to make this as transparent as possible. You trust us to monitor your certificate authority. We don't want anything to break that trust, so we want to be as transparent with what's going on as possible. So to monitor a certificate authority, we provide a certificate PowerShell script. And if we open this, we can open this really quickly in Notepad and show you that there's not much to it. I'm not going to go through the whole script in this. It'll just take too long, but the script itself, you can see, is not very big. So there's 2 parts to the script, and we're going to be running both parts. But if you have any questions about what the script is actually doing, it's right here for you to view yourself. So close those, and then what we want to do is we're going to take this script, we're going to copy it, and then we're going to come over here to our certificate authority. Now this is our certificate authority. My background blacked out for some reason, but this is our certificate authority. And what I like to do here is go ahead and create a new folder. And we want to put the certificate somewhere that's not going to change. So I'm going to put the certificate right here, or sorry, the PowerShell script. And then what I want to do is I want to launch PowerShell as an administrator. And we're going to go to this location. So CD software, CA monitor. And then you can see that that script is there. Now, the first thing we want to do to get this set up properly is we want to run this script with the install flag. And you can see it's going to say installing, it's going to finish. And what this does is this creates a, refresh our view, it creates a new scheduled task on the server that runs every 5 minutes. Now, there's nothing magical about this every 5 minutes. You are more than welcome, anyone's more than welcome to go in and change this if you want it running every 15 minutes, longer, fat, or shorter. However you want to do it is perfectly fine. There's nothing magical about the 5 minutes. 5 minutes just keeps it fairly real-time-ish. So if we look, we can refresh this and we can see that the next runtime is at 2:20. So we immediately, we're going to have to wait 5 minutes, or we can just kick it off, which is what I'm actually going to do here. So we're going to clear our screen here, and then I'm going to run CA monitor just to kick off the script. And you can see you can always run the script manually to get off. And now we're done. We got a 200 OK back, and we can minimize our CA. And if we come back now and look at our certificates, we can see our certificates are now populated with more certificates. And you can see we're now at 31 entries in our certificate database, because these are all ones that have now come over from our certificate authority. Now, none of these are actually associated with servers yet, because we haven't added any servers in, but they're all here. So you can see they were issued by ca.certms.local. And if we dive into any of these guys, we can kind of see all the data. So you can see all the subject data. You can see the subject alternative names we have here. You can see the thumbprint and the subject key identifier. And then there's no custom data here just because we don't have that yet. So now we've pulled in, that's one of the great things too, is now we've pulled in all the certificates, and we can run this on multiple CAs. You can run this on multiple issuing CAs. You can run it from multiple certificate templates. You can really kind of run it however you want. Now, the piece that we didn't change, so now we'll come into here, and if I go back to my CA monitors and I edit this one, I could put a name in for pending. And if there's a cert that becomes pending on this template, I would get an email about it. But this template doesn't actually have any pending. It doesn't require approval. So I'm just going to put in my email address for issue certs and submit that. And now any certs that get issued moving forward, I will get an email stating that a new cert was issued. So I can be monitoring these. You don't have to, but that's an option that you have. So you can monitor when certain certificate templates are used. And some of these you may want to, like if there's certain, secured templates that you want to monitor, you may want to monitor those so that a group of people know whenever a cert is issued with it. The key here really is flexibility. So now that we know we've got our CA monitor working, the next thing we want to do is we want to actually pull in something from maybe a host monitor. So if we look, you can see I've already got a couple set up here. Mike W Consulting website. So my website is here, and you can see that it's right now in a status of waiting. It's enabled because there's a check there where this one's disabled. I can always click that check and disable it, or click it again and re-enable it. And you can see when the next runtime is. So this is set to actually run tomorrow, and it's set to run weekly. And if we click the little pencil here, we can see all the details about it. So the name, the host name, which is mikewconsulting.com. The port, by default, it'll do port 443, but you can specify it or a different port if you want. And then how often I want it to run. So I've set this up, but if I want to pull it in right now, I have this nice little run button I can hit, and I can go ahead and run this. Now, if I refresh this page, we'll see, there you go. You can see the status has popped to scanning, and when it's done scanning, the status will go back to waiting. And you can notice the next runtime has gone to right now. So we'll let this finish. Okay, it's back to waiting. So now if we go to certificates, we should, if we search for Mike W Consulting, you can now see that a new certificate's been added, mikewconsulting.com, and we append scanner added to the end of these. So one of the reasons that we do this is because sometimes, depending on the website or the host that you're scanning in this case, we may not get the information. We may not get all the information. Some of the information may be missing out of what is returned. So in this, we like to add scanner added so that people can go in here and know that, maybe these need a little bit more checking. So maybe we need to add some of this subject value that actually didn't get added in here. Or maybe we want to add some subject alternative names that for some reason didn't get added. That's the reason that we have the scanner added, because you can always come in here and just do scanner added, and then it will search on all of it and find all of the scanner added items. And that's pretty much it for the host scanners. The host scanners are very simple. They monitor the site, and you can set the date and time when they run. And if it runs again and it finds nothing's changed about the certificate, it will just ignore it, and it won't pull anything new in. All right, so we're moving right along here. The next piece is server monitoring, which is really kind of the third and final piece of this in terms of how we're pulling certificates into CertMS. So to do server monitoring, the first thing we want to do is we need to set up some credentials. And we work with Kerberos here for authentication to Windows servers. So Kerberos is a piece that you'll set up when you would do the initial installation of CertMS. I'm not going to bore you with those technical details now, but that is something that you would set up then. What we'll be doing is coming in here under settings and going to credentials. And this is where we would define the credentials we want to use for our server monitoring. And it's as simple as add credentials, and you can add as many sets of credentials as you want in here. Just the name you want the credentials, the username, the password, and the domain they're a part of. I'm not going to add them because I already have that configured here. And be assured, everything is configured, or everything is stored securely encrypted. So you don't have to worry about anything, any passwords being leaked, anything like that being stored in here. And the fact that this is also a on-prem device, it's not a cloud-based device that someone can actually get to. So now that we've set up the server, the credentials, let's go ahead and set up a new server. So if I come in here to servers, you can see that I already have web server 1 and web server 2 and the certificates that are associated with them. So you can kind of see that we have some that are associated with them. These are all just test ones that we set up. But if I come in here and I do add server, I'm going to add our new IIS server. So let's do IIS, and you can see IIS. I want to do the FQDN, so iis.certms.local. I want to choose the operating system here. The operating system can be anything you want. Currently monitoring, we only support Windows, but Linux and Mac will be coming very, very soon. So we're going to set our operating system to Windows, and we don't have to monitor. We can leave these servers just here for reference, but it's actually good. It's much better if we do monitor them. So we're going to go ahead and set remote monitoring, and we're going to say, I want to use these credentials that we set up earlier. And now what do I want to monitor? Well, in this case, I want to monitor the local store, but if you want to monitor the user store of these credentials, that's completely doable as well. The retired checkbox is something that we do. We use that when a server has been decommissioned or removed from your environment. You're more than welcome to delete the server out of CertMS, but it's recommended that you just retire it as opposed to deleting it, because then you keep all the other historical associations that were with the server. So we're going to solve this up, and just like the certificates, we can add custom data to the servers as well if we would like. So we'll just go ahead and click submit here. And now you can see we have our IIS server configured here, Windows remote, and it's good to go. So now, one of the things I had mentioned before was you normally wouldn't need to start and stop these scanners. The computer scanner, which is the server scanner, the service that scans the computers or the servers, that runs about every 6 hours. And we did that because if you have hundreds of servers in there, we don't want CertMS overloading those servers every 5 minutes scanning them. Certs don't typically change that much, where it's really important for the association to come into play. So in this case, if we want them to run immediately after adding a server, all we have to do is restart the service. So I'm going to click stop here on the computer scanner service, and we're going to restart it. And then we're going to give that a minute or two. I may jump the gun a little bit on here, but let's see. I think they're test. So they're not showing up. Oh, yeah, there they are. So now you can see that test 2 and testdemo.certms.com are now associated with the IIS server. These certificates were brought in when we scanned the CA, but once we added the server and the scanning happened on the server, the association was made. So now these two certs are associated with our IIS server. And if we pick those certs, let's just pick this one, and we come down and look, you can see that it is associated with that IIS server. So that's really the goal of this software, is to associate these certs and these servers together with as little intervention or manual processes as possible. Now let's do one other thing. I want to show you. Let's go on our IIS server. I want to show you the monitoring piece real quick, and how it's going to send me a alert when a new certificate is issued. So we're going to come in here to our, there we go. So we're going to come in here and we're going to do create a new certificate request. And you're going to notice I've done this a few times, so there's going to be some documents already there. But we're going to call this new demo. I can type organization, CertMS, unit IT. Charlottesville, Virginia. If you don't know, that's where I'm from. And then we'll do next. The template requires a 2048-bit length, so we're going to select that. And then we're going to save the request out somewhere. So I've been saving them here, so we're going to call this new demo.csr. Let's change it to everything. Good. And now we'll finish that. Now what that's going to do is that's going to create a new CSR, which is this one right here, new demo CSR. And now we just need to sign it with our certificate authority. So I already have some of the pieces up here. That's not the one I wanted to do. Let's clear the screen, and then there we go. And then we'll do this again, but we're going to do new demo. And just if you don't know, CertRec is the way of requesting certificates to your certificate authority. All we're saying here is we want to submit a new request, and we want to use the template MWC Web 2024. And this is our certificate signer. So easy peasy. We're going to choose our CA, and then we're going to choose where we want to save it to. So we're going to do the same thing. We'll call this new demo.cer, and we'll save it. It's issued, so we'll minimize these, and then if I refresh, oh no, sorry, I got to complete this. So now we can come in and do complete. I'm going to choose my new demo.cer. We're going to give it a friendly name, new demo, and we want to store this in the personal account. So we're going to click OK. And you can see now our new demo cert is there. And I'm going to keep an eye on my inbox, because very soon an email should pop in letting me know that this new demo certificate was issued. So let's go ahead and, too many windows here. We'll go ahead and minimize our IIS server. And then let's just go ahead and check our certificates. I don't think it's come in yet. It has not come in yet, but should come in within 5 minutes as we're going. We'll let it go. All righty. So we're moving right along here. The next piece I want to show you that is really the important part. So we've pulled all these certificates together. We've pulled all these servers together. We've associated the certificates with the servers. Now I want to show you how we can report on everything. So the entire section, we have an entire reporting engine here. And there's two main pieces to it. There's reports, and there's the report scheduler. So reports is just that. These are reports that we can create, that we can then run kind of ad hoc whenever we want to give us certain data. So you can see by default, I already have a certs expiring in 60 days and a certs expiring in 90 days. So in this case, if I want to see one of these reports, I can just come in here and click run, and I can choose which version I want. Do I want a CSV or an HTML? Let's look at both. So if I run the CSV, I can come in here and open the file, and you can see immediately which ones are expiring. So here's the interesting thing. My Mike W. Consulting one is actually expiring soon. But in this case, you can see that v4.certmgmt.com is expiring, and over here you can see what servers it's associated with. So the CSV reports are really good if you want to add in some automation. So if you want to know what's expiring and then you want to add some automation to maybe do something, the CSV reports are great for that. The next one is the HTML report. And this is a great one if you want to run this one just to, give for management so management can see, or if you just want visibility for other people to see. And we can see this one gives the exact same information, just in a little nicer, visually appealing format. Now, once we've created our different reports, we then can come in here and do our report scheduler. So report scheduler only works if you actually have reports. So if you don't have any reports, you can't do any report scheduling. But report scheduling is how we're going to then schedule those reports to run and be sent to specific people. So let's go ahead and we're going to say, I want to create a new schedule report. And then which report do I want to do? I want to do the 90 days, the certs expiring in, 60 days. How often do I want this to run? I want this to run monthly. Start date, we'll just say I want this to start today. But I'm going to say I actually don't want this to run now. I want it to run at 8 a.m. There we go. And I want to send this to, we'll just go ahead and send it to me. And I want to send it in the CSV format. So that's perfect. So now I can just say submit. And what you'll notice is that it actually took the date that I gave it, and it said, oh, this date's already passed, so it calculated the next run date. So the next run date will be March 15th at 8 a.m. Now, before we kick this off, I want to take a jump back here and see if our new demo cert has come in. It's probably not associated with the web server yet because, again, it only runs every 6 hours. But I do have a new email. I'll pop it out so you can see it. I'll try to pop it out so you can see it. Let's see here. So here is the new email that's showing that a new certificate was issued and that the ca.certms.local has issued the certificate new demo with the template MWC Web 2024. So this is the kind of email that you will receive when a new certificate's issued, or pending if you actually have a pending alert set up. And the pending alerts are great because once you get a pending alert, you then know immediately that you can go and approve that if it needs approval. There's no waiting or checking on that later. All right, so let's kick back to here. Perfect. So now that we have that, we can rerun that service, but it's not going to be really worth it. So we're just going to leave it the way it is. Now let's go back to our report scheduler. And again, you can see that this is figured out the next run date. But I want to run this now for this demo. So I can do the same thing that I've done in some other cases, and I can just click run now. And you can see it changed the next run date to 2/15/1434, which is right now. So it's going to do that, and that's actually awesome. I already saw it pop into my email. So you can see it finished, and it's already set the date back to what the actual next run date is. Running it now does not affect the next run dates coming up. So now let's see, I've got this. See if I can pop this one out. I'll minimize this one. And you can see now that I got a certs expiring in 60 days, and the report.csv is right here in the email. So that is our reporting engine. So our reporting engine There's other things you can do with it, but this is the basis of our reporting engine. Now, let's see. Schedule reports. Yep, that's what we just went over. I'm just going through my document here. The next section, and again, there's lots of sections, and I'd love to do deeper dives on these in the future. But for the next section for now, I want to get into is actually going to be the documentation section. So this is a new section that has been recently added with version 1.1 that was just released. And it was, by popular demand, added in here. So the documentation section is a place that you can create your own documentation and attach it to a certificate. So you'll notice if you look at a certificate, there's a couple of options here. One is link documentation. So this is if you have your own internal SharePoint site or your own internal type of documentation, and you don't want to recreate the wheel, but you want to just link the documentation, you can do that here. So you can add this is a string field. You can add whatever data you want. Typically, it'd be a URL that would take you to the documentation. Excuse me. But if you'd like to use CertMS's built-in documentation, then you can come over to this documentation section, and it all works the same way as any of the other pieces. You can search, filter, all kinds of stuff. And we'll go ahead and take a look at the documentation we have in here. So this documentation is how to replace app ZYX certificate. So if I click the edit button there, you can see that we now are in the documentation. We have a place for a title, the author, and we have a place to put the documentation. Now, this is a great documentation tool. It takes pretty much anything you want to copy and paste into it. So if you copy and paste out of one document into another, this will accept most of the formatting. You can copy and paste images into the documentation as well, and all of that will be stored within the database. We try to make the documentation piece as easy and seamless as possible. So that's what we did. We try to make it as easy and seamless as possible here to create your own documentation. Even if you already have it somewhere else, we want you to be able to easily put it into CertMS. So we have this documentation, so I'm just going to cancel this here. And we can now go to any certificate we want. There is a specific one that I want, and that is the one, let me check, it's the one that's expiring. So V4 is expiring. So I'm going to do V4. And I'm going to edit this guy. And if I scroll all down here to the bottom, I can come and I can click plus to the documentation, and I can say replace app ZYX certificate. And this is the same search. So if we have long lists of documentation, you can search and filter the long list of documentation to make it really easy to get what you need. So I'm going to just click add here, and you can see that it adds that documentation now to the search. So click submit. It's now updated, and that documentation is associated with the certificate. Now, again, it's not a one-to-one relationship here. You can add multiple documentations to the certificate. You can add the same documentation to multiple certificates. It's a one-to-many relationship here. So we've got all that saved. And really what that does is that documentation ties into a couple of things. It ties into the certificate itself. So if anyone is searching on here for certificates that are going to be expiring soon. So if we saw on the dashboard, hey, my V4 certificate's expiring soon, let's take a look at that. I can come in here, and any user who has access can come in and say, oh, here's the documentation for it. And they can look up that documentation. Where it really ties in is it also into another feature that's been released into version 1.1, and that's the help desk integration. So in the help desk integration piece, we go by the fact that most help desk systems allow you to actually send an email into them to generate that help desk ticket. What the help desk integration does is it actually looks for certificates that are expiring. It pulls together the information on each certificate expiring in a certain time frame, and it sends that to your help desk system. So in this case, what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and set this up real quick. So we're going to do add HT integration. I'm going to just call this, and you can see I've already been testing this. Help desk expires in 30 days is what I want to do. This email address is where you would be emailing your help desk software. So if you had a specific email mailbox for it, then you would email it here. You can specify based on certificate template. So if you don't care about certain templates, then that's, you want to put certain templates in here just to alert on those. If you leave it blank, it's going to alert on everything. And then only on servers. This is a checkbox that basically means if the certificate that's expiring is not associated to any server inside of CertMS, then we're not going to alert on it. So I would suggest leaving this unchecked, especially for this demo purpose. I'm gonna leave it unchecked, but it's totally up to you whether you want to do that or not, because you may not care about certain certificates expiring if there's no server association with them. So we'll click submit on this. And then this, very similar to some of the server monitoring, this only runs every 15 minutes. It doesn't run that often. But through the powers of the demo, I can actually go ahead and kick this off. So let me go to my certificates here. And then I'm going to go ahead and kick this off on my end. This is not something that you would be able to do normally. But so I was able to kick off that now. So in a minute, I already did, I should be getting an email. So now let me pop this email out and show it to you. So same deal here now. Now this is the email that would be coming into your help desk system. So it's a very similar looking email. So you can see v4 certmanagement.com 2022. So this is the cert that's expiring. Gives you all the information about it, when it's expiring. It tells you what servers the certificate was found on. So in this case, WebServe 2. And then it attaches underneath the documentation that is needed to replace that certificate. So with the help desk integration going on, you can actually let anyone who has the proper access take care of these certificates, because the documentation's there. It's all within the ticket. The idea is, ticket comes in, anyone with the proper access can just take the ticket and run with it, replace the certificate, and move on with it. All right. And what happens when we do that, and this is why I want to go back to this certificate, is we defined, let's say, under integrations, I breezed over it, but there is this key that you have to define. And this key is a unique attribute that should be, it's a unique attribute. Each help desk integration should have a unique attribute key. And what this key does is it adds a custom attribute to the certificate. So if we now scroll down, you can see the HD int key attribute for custom data has been added with the value of HD. CertMS does this so that when it runs the next time, it knows that a help desk ticket has already been sent about this certificate. It says, hey, this key is here, so I know a help desk ticket has already been generated. But let's say something happened. The help desk ticketing system stopped working, or the mailbox was full and the email was rejected, or some other thing happened and the ticket didn't actually get created. Well, that's easy. If you know that happened, you can come in here and you can just delete this key, this custom data here, save your certificate, and then the next time that the help desk integration runs, it will pull the certificate back in and send that email again. The reason that we also do this is because it is very possible that you may have certificates that need to go to other people. So we do this so that some of that can be organized, but we may have one server that, say, has 3 different types of certificates on it. One goes to a systems team, maybe one goes to a security team, and one goes to a users team. And we do all this so that we can keep everything as customizable as possible for you. So we know we're not going to get all use cases, but we want to try to cover as many use cases as possible. So that is documentation and integration. And let's check the last couple bits, and we got about 15 minutes left, which I think is actually perfect. So I want to go over one more section. And I'll go over this really quickly because this is kind of the boring section, and then we'll hit the Q&A, which I'm happy to see there are a few questions in there already. So The last section here is settings. There's a lot of settings in here. We'll be kind of breaking this out a little bit more, but I'm going to hit some of the highlights here. So user creation, so users, this is a very important setting. This is where you will be able to add all the different users that you need to be able to access CertMS. When you click add users, you can fill out all the information you want here. If you have radius configured, which we'll hit that one in a second, you can just check use radius user. And then the password piece becomes irrelevant, and it's going to use radius authentication to authenticate that user. This is nice because then everyone keeps the same password across all their accounts, and if the password changes for the user, the radius user, they're updated on CertMS. It makes things a lot easier if we're able to use radius. Oops, wrong section. Settings. SMTP settings. This is also a very important setting. In order for the SMTP piece to work, for your emails to work, so your email alerting, your reporting, your help desk integration, everything that uses email, you have to configure your SMTP settings. Shouldn't be a big deal. I am personally in this demo using SendGrid because I have an account with SendGrid, so it works out really well. But you will want to use your SMTP server, whether that's Exchange, whether that's SMTP Mail, Exchange Online, Gmail. Every system, every mailing system has SMTP settings, and we completely support SSL and TLS and Start TLS for your connection security if you're using a third party and not an internal one. We also support none, so we support basic SMTP, non-encrypted, but I highly recommend using Start TLS or SSL and TLS. We looked at credentials. I'm going to hit API tokens. So API tokens, this is where, so CertMS has a full API backend that you can use to automate stuff. So a lot of pieces that are actually done with CertMS utilize an API backend. And we want to make sure users can take advantage of that. So we offer a full API backend that is usable through, it's a REST API backend. So it's really simple to use. You can pretty much use it with Python, PowerShell, any type of scripting language that you want, or automation tools. And with this, you would just say generate token. And what this does, it generates a one-time token that you will never be able to see again. You'll see it this first time, and then you'll save it. We'll just save it here. And then you can use the documentation to determine, on how to use the API, but that token is what you will use. And now we'll never see that token again. This is the last time we'll see it. And then, in many cases, you could revoke a token. In CertMS's case, we just delete the token. And if we delete the token, it's no longer usable by anybody. Credentials, we already briefed over that one. Radius, this is a very simple, put in your radius information. We allow people to update, so you can see this HTTPS certificate I have here is actually it's actually from my certificate authority here. So CertMS is certificate authority. We give you the ability to update your own. So you can generate your own CSR right here from CertMS, and then you can sign it and upload the cert file and the private key to update the certificate for CertMS. We also give you the ability, which this is a very important ability, to add your intermediate certificates. There are certain features that CertMS won't work properly if it doesn't trust your internal certificate authority. So this is one of the things that you will need to do during initial setup, is just add the intermediate certificates of your CA so that CertMS trusts them. Backup and restore. Obvious, you can do a full backup of CertMS when you need to. These backups should be secured because there is some private information, some very critical information in that backup. But the backup can be used to completely restore your entire CertMS system if something were to happen. So I definitely recommend doing periodic backups, and backup is also something that's available in the API. So you can completely automate the backup process versus having someone have to come in and click this button every month. And the last one I wanted to hit on, there's some obvious ones, license updates, shutdown and reboot, but the last one I want to hit on is SID exclusions. So we use the thumbprint and the subject key identifier to identify certain certificates, and that's kind of the unique piece of the certificate. What we have found is that there is the very slim chance, very slim, that a SID could get duplicated. Or there could be a SID that just is not acting right, or a specific certificate that's not acting right. If that is the case, we can come in here and you can add in the subject key identifier, or SID in this case. I know that doesn't match up, but that's what it's called. You can add in the SID and then any notes and then add. And then what's going to happen is CertMS is going to completely ignore that SID if it ever sees it. It will not pull that SID into CertMS. All right. And that completes the demo. So where did that's the screen I wanted to go to. So that completes the demo. And now I wanted, there it is. So if you're interested, if you want some more information about CertMS, if you are a current CertMS customer and you need support, if you have any feature requests, this is our contact information. So sales@certms.com for anything sales related. If you want your own personalized kind of demo to see how this works, then contact sales@certms.com. Support, if you have any support issues or if you have any feature requests. This is something that we rely heavily on, is feature requests. So anybody who has a feature request, we would love to hear it at support. We would love to hear it. Send it to support@certms.com. Feature requests are always great. Like I said, a lot of the features that have come out in version 1.1 are due to customer feature requests, and we love that. We want to give you what we can, what you want. So that gives me about 8 minutes for a couple of questions, and I'm liking this. All right, so let's start at the top of them. Do you have to add servers manually first, or do you see a list of servers you can associate after you add certs? So adding servers manually, so servers, make sure I understand the question correctly. Servers can be added manually, or they can be added through the API. If you're talking about adding servers directly to CertMS itself, that can all be done through the API. We don't currently, but we will have PowerShell scripts that will help you to pull all your Active Directory servers and put them into CertMS through a single script. That is a very doable piece. The association of the servers to the certificate, if you're not letting the server monitor do that, then that would have to be a manual association. So if you're not actually monitoring the server after you've included it, so if you have that monitor set to none instead of remote, then you would manually have to associate the server with the certificate. But if you have that monitoring on and the certificate's on the server, that association will happen automatically. In your opinion, is there a minimum number of certs that justify tracking them in a tool like CertMS? So in my opinion I don't think there is a minimum number. I think everybody's going to be different in terms of their environment. If you could count, if you have 10 certs in your environment and you have a 30-person IT department, you may not need CertMS to track that stuff because you probably have enough resources. If you're a one-person environment, if you're a 1 or 2-person IT department, and you have 10 websites that each have a different certificate that you need to track, it may be a good option for you because if nothing else, it will alert you when the time comes that they need to be renewed. And if it's certs you don't do that often, and you keep that documentation within CertMS, you'll have the documentation and the certs and the cert and when it's going to expire. So I think it's going to be different. I don't see a minimum. Certainly don't see a maximum. I think a tool like this makes a lot more sense the more certificates you have. But I think everyone's situation is going to be different. I think 5 certs might be maybe on the too too few side, but it's really up to the user and what they want to monitor. I think in many cases, once you implement a tool like this, you might find out that there are actually more certificates in your environment than you realize. All right. If you edit an existing document from the document tab, do your edits reflect on the certificate you associated that document with? Yes, that is the case. So if I came in here now and I updated this documentation to be uh, whatever I wanted to add into this documentation and submitted it, that documentation is now updated. The documentation is still associated with the certificate. So if I come in and let's do my before, edit this, and we'll remove this key and make sure my integration is still there. And then I'll kick off that integration really quick. And when that email comes in, which should be coming in shortly, you can see that the updated gobbledygook that I added is now showing up there. So updates to documents will also basically update the certificate because it's a relationship. It's really just a pointer. So the certificate saying, hey, I'm associated with this documentation, whatever that documentation is. So it's just a reference. So yes, updating the documentation does also update it for whatever certificates are that documentation is associated with. Awesome. I'm just super happy that this timing worked out perfectly here. So we're right here at an hour now. I'm going to leave this slide up if anyone wants it. Again, sales@CertMS.com and support@CertMS.com. Would love to hear from you if you want a more personalized demo or if you have any other questions that you would like to ask. We are always ready and willing to help. So with that, I want to thank everyone who joined today. This will be up on, I'll probably have it up on YouTube before too long. And then that will be also linked to the site. So you can go to CertMS.com and you'll be able to view this webinar probably within a day or so after this is concluded. So that, again, I want to thank everybody. Please let me know if you have any questions or you have anything else you want to see. And everyone have a fantastic day.